Struggling with insomnia and sleep, it can be a tough thing to deal with, and those challenges can be made worse if you have hypothyroidism. And a lot of times, people tend to reach for supplements and medication that might knock them out, but doesn't allow them to get the restorative sleep that they need. So in today's video, we're going to go over 11 tips to help you get your best sleep. And the nice thing about them is they're practical and easy to implement, and hopefully will get you back on your journey to a more normal sleep cycle and allow you to get the sleep that you deserve. Additionally, if you like these kind of videos, don't forget to subscribe and also ring the bell. I post videos every single Thursday morning, and that will let you know when the new video goes live. My name is Dr. Bodle, and I specialize in helping women with Hashimoto's and low thyroid to lose weight and improve their energy naturally. And for today's 11 tips on sleep, we're actually going to separate them into 3 categories so it's a little bit easier to follow. And those are nutrition, exercise and breathing, and environmental factors. But let's start off by jumping into the first category of nutrition with our first tip, which is stabilize your fuel levels. So of course I hope that you hang with me for the entire video, but I put the most important tip right at the beginning. And I think if you don't get this one right, you can kind of forget about the rest of the tips that we're going to go over together. Hypothyroidism presents a unique challenge. It can change the way our hormones work. It can decrease our metabolism, and it can increase stress in the body. All of this can change the way that we process and utilize the energy that we should be getting from our food. When this happens and we can't keep our fuel levels stable throughout the day, it puts us on a roller coaster of energy changes. Sometimes we feel good, and other times we know that if we sit down even for a second, we're going to fall asleep. Unfortunately, this translates into the night and can disrupt our ability to get consistent sleep from when we go to bed all the way to waking up in the morning. These kind of fuel changes won't always show up on your typical blood tests. You may have normal fasting glucose and normal fasting triglycerides, which would make you think that this isn't a problem for you. But the biggest thing you can do is look at how you feel when you eat. If you notice there are changes in symptoms or energy when you eat, then there's a higher likelihood that fuel levels aren't being stabilized, and this could be one of the key factors contributing to your sleep disturbances. So if you eat and soon afterwards you find yourself feeling sleepy, tired, and drowsy, or you find that you feel more energized, more vibrant, and symptoms like headaches and shakiness start to resolve, both are strong indicators that your fuel levels are not stable for you and your nutrition is contributing to some of these issues. You're going to want to make some adjustments to resolve these problems. That way you can have more stability during the day, which will translate to stability during the night. My recommendations to help with this is to look at carbohydrate intake and protein intake. Most people with hypothyroidism are consuming too many carbohydrates and not enough protein. And if we can find a better balance here, then it should help to smooth some of these issues out. What you want to look for is a decrease in the energy changes after meals, less desire for snacking and less cravings, and better satiety overall throughout your day. To reduce your carbohydrates, avoid processed grains, sugars, and flours, and instead focus on whole foods like fruits and vegetables. To increase your protein, you're going to want to base that off your body size and demand. I typically recommend that people take their weight in kilograms, multiply by 1.5, and that will give you the minimum amount of protein in grams that you're going to want to consume on a day-to-day basis. Now, I know this might seem like a big deviation from where you're at, but trust me, it'll make a big difference in how you feel, and ideally, it'll also make a big difference in how you sleep. Whew, okay, I know that was a long one to start out with. The rest of them won't be so long and in-depth, but like I said, that one's the most important, and we have to make sure it's right for the rest of these tips to be effective. Tip number 2 under the nutrition category is to cut out the alcohol. Now, I know a lot of people will use alcohol to try to help them go to sleep, but the truth is that they're not actually going to sleep. Alcohol prevents us from getting into those deeper levels of sleep, and it prevents normal REM cycling. So even though it might look like sleep, alcohol prevents us from getting that restorative rest that we need to be able to wake up in the morning feeling rejuvenated. Tip number 3 is to cut out the stimulants like coffee and caffeine. Now, do I think coffee can be a normal and healthy part of our lifestyle? Yes, I do. But if we're having struggles with our sleep, then it's something we need to take a hard look at. Now, this can sometimes seem a little counterintuitive because if we're having troubles with our sleep, sometimes people feel like they need something to get them through their day. But this can become a bit of a vicious loop where our sleep isn't appropriate, we're relying on stimulants, and that then further compounds our sleep issues. So if we want to have better sleep, ditch the coffee. Tip number 4, and the last tip in our nutrition section, is that you need to find what time is appropriate for you to stop eating before you go to bed. Now, if you're someone who has difficulty falling to sleep, then it's more likely that you're going to need to increase the time between your last bite and your bedtime. Usually I recommend a 3-hour window is a good place to start for this. On the other hand, if you're someone who struggles with staying asleep and you find yourself waking up at 2, 3, or 4 a.m. where you're tossing and turning and can't get back to sleep, then likely your fuel levels are dropping too low at night and you would benefit by boosting your calories before you go to sleep. I typically recommend that people do a tablespoon of MCT oil, 1 tablespoon of coconut oil, or 4 to 5 bites of protein right before they brush their teeth and go to bed. Now, I know this can sound a little bit counterintuitive, but as long as we keep the food intake small and we use some options that are calorically dense, it can help to smooth out these sleep patterns without disrupting your digestion. All right then, so on to our next category, which is exercise and breathing. And we're gonna start out with tip number 5, which is exercise timing. We all know that we need to be moving and exercising, but when we exercise can be super important for how we sleep. Now, some exercise is better than none, but if we have the option, I highly recommend that we trend towards doing our exercise in the morning and first half of the day rather than doing it in the second half of the day. When we exercise in the morning, it actually syncs our body up with our normal cortisol awakening response. If we can boost those cortisol levels at the start of the day, it will help us to wake up more easily, and it will also set us up for a normal transition from high cortisol levels in the morning to low cortisol levels at night. When this happens, we can have the appropriate difference between high melatonin levels and low cortisol levels at night, which will then allow us to get to sleep much more easily. Now, you guys might find tip number 6 a little bit weird, and I thought it was a little weird when I first started trying it out. But if you guys have hung with me this long, you know that I'm a little weird and I like to try new and interesting things to help support your body in different ways. But what the tip is that we want to improve the amount of nostril or nasal breathing that we're doing at night, and the way that we achieve that is through mouth taping. So mouth taping is exactly what it sounds like. What you want to do is buy just a nice little cheap roll of medical tape, take a little square, and just place it right on your lips. When you do that, it will help to keep your mouth closed at night, and this will facilitate more nasal breathing. Now, it usually will take us about 2 to 3 weeks to get used to the tape. 1, just because it's a different sensation on your mouth at night, and 2, because most of us aren't used to breathing through our nose so exclusively. However, breathing through our nose has some unique benefits to it, from increasing the amount of filtration to allowing us to get more oxygen into our lungs. And when we do this, it can really impact the quality of our sleep. The nice thing about the mouth taping is it's both diagnostic as well as therapeutic, meaning that sure, it can help you out, but if it isn't and you're really struggling to make that switch, you may want to schedule an appointment with your primary or a specialist like an EENT to see if you have any blockages in your nasal cavity that could be contributing to things like your sleep issues and potentially to symptoms like overall fatigue. Now that we're done with the first 2 sections, pop into the comments and let me know what you think so far. Do you have changes in energy throughout the day? Do you think that mouth taping sounds weird? Let me know and let's continue the conversation. That way we can figure out some of these strategies that would be best for you. Moving on, our last category is environmental factors, and it's going to include our last 5 tips. Tip number 7 is to use a wake-up light or a sunrise light. Now, normally through human evolution, we would be slowly and gradually awakened by the increasing amount of light in the sky due to the sunrise. But usually, especially during these months, the winter months of the year, We are in a dark room, and then we are abruptly awoken by some sort of noise or alarm. A loud alarm can be jarring, and it can be inconsistent with our biology. So instead, we can use a wake-up light, which gradually increases the light intensity in your room and can help you to transition more normally from a sleep state to an awakened state. Tip number 8 is to get consistent outdoor daylight exposure every single day. And if we can do it at the same time, then that's even better. Even though the wake-up light can be great, it's no replacement for actual light from the sun. And even if you live in a place that's typically dark and dreary, sunlight on a cloudy or covered day is still much more powerful than anything that you can create artificially. The best way to do this is if you have some daylight available to you before you start work, combine your outdoor exposure with your exercise. That way you can get benefits from both aspects. As we switch from tips to start our day to tips to end our day, this is one of my most favorites, and it kind of goes along with the mouth taping, where it's super easy to implement and it can have really profound changes in how we feel and function. So tip number 9 is using blue light blocking glasses 2 to 3 hours before you go to sleep. There's a lot of companies out there that want to sell you fancy, expensive glasses to help achieve this, but you don't need them. As long as you can find some glasses that have a dark orange or even red tint to them, those are effective enough to allow us to achieve the benefits. I usually recommend to my patients a nice pair of construction glasses that are about $10 to $12 on Amazon and will do the trick just fine. The interesting thing is that blue light from things like our devices or overhead fluorescent lighting is enough to suppress melatonin production, but it's not enough to give us the benefits of things like outdoor lighting. So in the evening time, we want to make sure we're avoiding those things, and if we are being exposed to blue light, we want to use the glasses in this particular situation. Tip number 10 is to sleep in a cool room. Now, if you're someone who runs a little bit on the colder side, you can certainly use more blankets, but we want the ambient environment to be on the cooler side. So if you can get your room temperature to 65 degrees or less, it can be really powerful in the way it helps you to sleep more soundly. And finally, tip number 11 is to sleep in a completely dark room. So if you have some blinds that lets light through, or you have a clock or a cell phone that's going off, all of these things need to be removed. We need to block out that light coming from the window, and you will see a huge difference in how you sleep and feel. You can do this by getting some blackout curtains for your windows, or simply putting some tape over some of the other light sources in your room. It doesn't have to be too complicated, just make sure that the room is as dark as possible. But that's it for all 11 tips to help you achieve your best sleep. But if you're still struggling with some of your thyroid symptoms and are interested in taking the next step and want to work with me one-on-one, then send me an email at contact@seattlethyroidhelp.com, which I'll link for you in the description box below, and we can get you all the information you need to be able to set up a free consultation to see if you and I would be a good fit to work together. If you want to start making some changes on your own right now, you can also download my free guide, which is 109 foods to boost your thyroid and improve your energy, and it includes a list of foods that I recommend for people to use and include in their meal planning to allow them to start making changes with their thyroid health. But that's all for today. I hope you guys know how much I appreciate you. I hope you're doing well. If you like this video, it's super helpful if you can give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and also share it with someone who really needs it. My name is Dr. Bodle. I hope you guys are having a great week, and I will see you next Thursday.